Darshan Maharaja, thank you for joining me on the show today. I wanted to bring you back on because this is there's a story I've been chatting with you specifically about, and this is the student visa debacle and immigration that's happening here in Canada. And well, let's just get right into it. I saw a tweet just recently, and this tweet was of people protesting. This is these. Can you explain to me what's happening in this scene here?
This is from PEI, and what's happening is that all these international students had come in. Most of them seem to be from India, and their understanding was that they will get work permit after their studies are over, and then they will be on their way to gaining permanent residency. But PEI changed its policy, saying that we are not going to renew your work permits. Some of them have work permits expiring in the next couple of months or so, and down the line for the others. So they are saying that this policy change is unfair. Now, one assumes that PEI government made the decision in light of prevailing circumstances, which any government has a right and duty to do.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that, in fact, it is in two parts. One is that every student who comes in from abroad, especially in this kind of a stream, assumes that they are going to get permanent residency in Canada, but that is not necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
We have discussed this before. The rate of international students gaining permanent residency is 30%. And even within that, people doing, let's say, engineering course at U of T or Windsor or UBC or wherever, they have a higher percentage, plus the masters and PhDs and research projects and things like that. So for the ordinary college students, the ratio is maybe between 25 to 28%. So for them to present as if it was supposed to be a done deal is, in my view, misleading.
Well, what's misleading to a lot of Canadians is that immigration is one thing. People applying to immigrate to a country because of merits, however the setup, the system is set up, which I believe it should have a lot more to do with merits. And then we have the student visa program, which is not supposed to be a backdoor for immigration. This is supposed to be you're able to come into the country to study at our universities that are top tier universities, and then proceed to go back home, just like Canadians do when they go to Harvard or Yale or any of these places. They're not going there with the express intent of immigrating to those countries, but it seems that they've been using the system as an immigration backdoor where maybe they wouldn't be eligible under our normal immigration. Is that am I summing that up correctly?
Yeah, you are. See, two things that were working very well, not just as systems, but were working very well for the individuals coming in and for Canada. These two things have got completely messed up. One was our immigration policy, which was, one area where we could genuinely claim to be the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hear that claim in relation to healthcare system, but that's a bogus claim. But here we could genuinely
terrible.
Yeah,
maybe that it is a good comparison because both are terrible at the moment.
No, I mean, previously, before this whole debacle,
right,
our immigration system was something to be really proud of, where we were drawing very good talent from across the globe. And then they were prospering here. Canada was benefiting. They were fitting in well. The integration part was also happening in a satisfactory way.
mm-hmm.
And secondly, the image of the Indo-Canadian community, which was until now considered to be a model minority,
right,
has taken a complete hit. Where there are people here who came here as children in the 1960s, and now they are being lumped together with all the other people who are recent arrivals, and who are being seen as a cause of a lot of problems, sometimes rightly, sometimes wrongly. But there are these two distinct classes within the Indo-Canadian community that have now been lumped together in public perception. So the image of the Indo-Canadian community has gone for a toss.
Well, explain that a little bit,
This,
because like out here on the West Coast, we had a referendum recently. In the city of
Mhm.
Surrey, there was an entire area that had a staged referendum, a non-binding referendum to instate the state of Khalistan in a geographical area of Canada. And obviously,
no, 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 no,
I don't know,
no,
like
no. It was
I don't know if I'm confusing that, but this is what it comes across as.
no, no. It's not supposed to be in the geographical area of Canada. It is supposed to be in the geographical area of the state of Punjab in India
Oh, well, maybe they should get
and some
their
surrounding
well,
regions.
I'd suggest that they get their slogans tuned down a little bit, because this is the image that a lot of Canadians get. Oh wow, all these people are moving here. Wait, they want to make a new state. Well, okay, so they want to do that in India, and that's what the referendum is
Mhm.
about. Well,
Yeah.
people are rightly concerned when they see that. But what are you referring to when you're talking about the state of the Indo-Canadian community, the image?
See, see, we have talked about the labor market impact assessment (LMIA),
Okay.
right? Which enables the foreign student or a temporary foreign worker to get employed at a Canadian business. Now, those are being sold. It is openly known. In fact, one of the major MSM outlets reached out to me when I tweeted about that, and then we are working together now on a detailed report. Unfortunately, I cannot name them because they said until the article comes out, please keep this to yourself. So I'm not
Okay.
giving out the name. But this has become a big problem, and mainly it is people of Indian origin being seen to be doing this. Then there are the slum lords who are also of Indian origin, where you have 25 international students living in one basement, or the horror stories are aplenty. You
And they're
can go
very
online
real.
any day and find any number of them that you want. You fix the number, you will find the
Well, there
stories.
was a post that you shared, and I don't have it at my disposal right now, but it was someone who is trying to rent out the space underneath their bed for
Yeah. Now,
nine
even
hundred
even if
dollars a month.
even if it's a joke, you have to consider the environment in which someone can make that joke.
Yeah, well, that's where we're at.
10 years ago, that wouldn't have occurred to someone to make a joke like that. So even if it's a joke, and there are plenty of legitimate postings that we see, typically they show up on Reddit. And so slum lording is another. Then the international students themselves, see, partly I don't blame them, because when you are living, let's say, 15 or 20 or 25 guys in one basement, you cannot spend any length of time there.
No.
So they are hanging out in plazas and being 18, 20, 21 years old. They are boisterous,
Yes.
and they are coming from a different, very different culture. In fact, their culture is very different from mine, although I am from the same broad geographical area,
Hmm.
because they are coming from rural areas, or a different state, different part of India. So it's a very boisterous culture. Punjabi culture is very boisterous, and it has a lot of vigor in it.
Hmm.
It is never subdued. And this is something that makes them excellent farmers and soldiers also,
Well, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. But we're
right?
not looking for more farmers
Because
and soldiers in our communities.
right. So their behavior in that plaza will be like that. Then you get so many who are basically, there is fraud from top to bottom in this system. We have discussed that earlier. So a lot of them, because they are now caught up in financial distress or whatever, they get drawn into either crime, including drugs trafficking, or in human trafficking.
Which is a real thing. Yeah,
So
this is happening here in
yeah,
Canada.
when you see every day or every second day, you see a notification from the police, and the person who has been charged is of the same ethnicity every time, it has to at some point hit the image of the community to which these individuals belong.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of all these, combination of factors, the image of Indo-Canadian community has been ruined. Our immigration policy, which used to be held up as an example of how to go about immigration, has been ruined. And again, this is from last week, when the three young men were arrested in the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar
Mm-hmm.
in Surrey. It turned out that at least one or two of them are international students, if not all three. So a reporter asked Immigration Minister Mark Miller, saying, "Do international students undergo a criminal background check?" And he said yes, which is false.
It's false. So how is that confirmed that this isn't how they do that? So obviously Mark Miller, he just wanted to say that to get the reporter off his back. But this is accurate, correct? That there is no criminal background check
There
for.
is no criminal background check, and this was ultimately, I called him out on the same day on Twitter. I said this is objectively false. And then a lot of people came at me showing screenshots of government website and this and that. I said, look at the wording. It says if required. That means it is not mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
On a case by case basis, if the processing officer feels that he needs to have that, then he can ask for it.
Right.
Then this was confirmed by Global News, who then ran a story saying, Minister Miller said this, but many immigration consultants and even the government's own website says that it is not required, especially for India.
Now this became
Right.
this was a very contentious story because Justin Trudeau himself dabbled in conspiracy theories by saying that this was the Indian government that was behind this assassination that occurred in Surrey. But then now it's turning out that it looks like these guys are just petty criminals, like of some sort, and it had nothing to do with the Indian government.
No. See, in fairness, I wouldn't call it a conspiracy theory. I would call it untested allegation.
Okay, okay, well, yeah, fair enough.
Right?
An untested
Untested allegation, because we don't know, right?
Right.
But you see, for him to make that statement means that he put the Indian government on a back foot, so they were going to be reluctant to cooperate fully. Right? Now, one can assume that there had been enough honest attempts before, etc. But coming back to the point, Minister Miller saying that to a reporter on record where he was being recorded, and the way he said it should have raised a red flag for the reporter right away. First of all, she should have known the answer before asking the question,
Right.
which she didn't. And I'm giving her benefit of doubt here that she didn't know. Okay. Then the way he said yes, immediately, if you look at his body language, it should have raised a red flag. Because if they were doing it, he would have elaborated on that.
Right.
He would have thrown in statements saying something like, we ensure the safety and security of all Canadians, and, a few pats on the back.
Right.
He would have done that. Instead of that, he just said yes, very quickly. The way, you hear at the end of an alcohol commercial, please drink responsibly. It goes very fast.
Because they don't care at the end of the day. No, I'm fair. I'm fair. That's a good way of putting it, actually. But at the end of the day, here we are. At the end of the day, here we are in a situation in Canada where we have all these people that came over under a false pretense that they were going to get, their immigration visa. They found a back door and they can get in, and they were promised this. They were paid a lot of money. Sometimes their entire families mortgaged off their farms or whatever it is. So this is a big scam. Again, getting back to how the discussion first came out when I first spoke to you on the channel, that these people, they got hosed too, right? It's not just the Canadian public are getting hosed by having all these new people that don't necessarily shouldn't necessarily be coming to the country in such large numbers. But these people are in a situation where they got lied to. Now they're in Canada and they're turning around and they're saying, we want what was promised to us. We want all of these things. We want work permits.
Mm.
We want to be able to, be able to work 40-hour work weeks, which is not something that we typically would think that a full-time student would be doing. We think that they'd be coming over with some sort of savings and also, supplement their being a student with a part-time job, but then also go home afterwards. This is not what's happening. It's lunacy.
No. This is about postgraduate work permit. It's not about working during studies.
Oh, this is after.
After post graduation, they get a work permit. So most of them are on work permit.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think all of them, they are on work permit. Their work permit is expiring within a few months or so, and the province's government decided that they are not going to be renewed because they are not working in areas where there is need for labor or for people to work. There is no need for workers.
Mm-hmm.
Their need may be in healthcare or construction or whatever, and these kids are working in Tim Hortons or some kind of a service establishment, food restaurant, whatever. So the province says that we don't need workers in these fields. So they have said that we will not be renewing your postgraduate work permit any further. And these kids are demonstrating to have it renewed. They even said that they would go on hunger strike and things like that. But this is because, and the best reporting on this was done a couple of years ago by the Narwhal. And just full disclosure, there is absolutely zero common ground between me and the Narwhal.
Okay.
But I have to give credit where it is due. That report is the gold standard in reporting, not just on this issue, but any issue. If you want to cover an issue and you want to learn how to cover it, then you read that report. They have sent people to rural Punjab, traced all the way to Canada and into colleges, and what happens afterwards, and it's the complete picture of an issue. And this was, I think, about a couple of years ago. And even after that, the awareness of the entire situation remains at a very low level because the MSM did not pick it up properly. They may have done this or that reporting here and there, like this PEI demonstration. I saw it on CBC, but they haven't really worked hard to give the complete picture to Canadians. So, everybody says that, that they are supposed to get a postgraduate work permit after their studies are over, and then they have a chance to become Canadian, but nobody will hammer the point that the rate is 30%.
The rate is 30%. They still get it.
Right? So 70% are not getting it. Once you know that fact, you see this protest in a different light. Right? Or even in other places like in Algoma University here in Brampton, there was protest because a lot of students had been failed, and then they were protesting, saying that we have been victimized or discriminated against because the university just wants our money, things like that. Right? So you have to drill down on the issues and then bring it to the people.
So is there actually 70% of these people going back to India after this happens, or are they overstaying their visas and becoming, filing in other ways, whether it's refugee status or any of these forms? Are they actually getting on planes and going back to their families, or are they staying?
It's a mix of everything.
Okay.
Some will get another LMIA and continue to be here. Some will be here illegally. Late last year, we learned via CIBC's chief economist that there are over 1 million people who decided not to go back when their temporary visa was over. That's like 1 million in a country of, by then we were 40 million. That's a very big percentage.
That's massive.
Right? It's 2.5. yeah, it's 2.5%. So that's massive. Then some will be going back. So it's a some will be filing for refugee status, things like that. Even that blew up last November when someone dug out information via ATIP saying that in last 5 years, 15,000 plus international students had applied for refugee status while they were students.
So it's a mill. It's an immigration mill. This is
Yes.
there's no ifs,
Yes.
ands, or buts about that. That's not the purpose of people enrolling in these schools. The purpose of them coming here in the first place is not for higher education to learn a particular set of skills and then go back home with those skills, or at least stay in Canada with those skills, the skills that
Hmm.
are necessary in Canada, because either Canadians aren't getting into that line of work, or there's not enough Canadians to even get into some of these lines of work, and that's just the reality of the situation. But to see that we have these programs and it's not even being used for that; it's being used as something else, an immigration mill.
Yeah, and then you have programs that have no conceivable value, like general management diploma course of 2 years. And we don't need so many managers. Like 800,000 students were enrolled in general management diploma courses,
How
right?
many?
800,000. Someone dug that up too.
800,000 managers. It sounds like they're getting ready to get a government job, because that's all it seems the government does, is sit around and manage things. Nobody ever gets anything done.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. Darshan, I want to thank you for joining me today to come on and talk about this. Again, you're constantly bringing out more of this information to light, and I encourage people to go over and follow you and what you're doing. Can you share with everybody where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, my website is darshanmaharaja.ca. My podcast is Our Canadian Journey. It's available on Podbean and Spotify. Google Podcast, unfortunately, is closing down, so
Oh, okay.
I'm not giving that out. And my Twitter handle is at Theophanes Rex. That is TheophanesRex.
And I'll make sure all the links are in the description down below. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.